Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I was secretly married to my CEO boss Marcus for like 6 years, and the kicker: he never let our son Sam call him Dad. It was always Uncle Marcus. Can you believe it? Anyway, after another one of his disappearing acts, this time missing Sam's birthday because of his secretary Tiffany, I was done. I whipped out the divorce papers, packed up Sam, and we bounced. Never looked back. Of course, Marcus, Mr. Cool under pressure, totally lost it. He barged into my office all frantic, asking everyone where I was, but this time Sam and I were ghosts. We weren't turning around. It all started with my resignation. I walked up to my manager and was like, "Hey Manager Chan, I'm heading overseas for some further studies next month. Here's my resignation." He looked super surprised. "Whoa, so sudden." I had my whole sob story ready. "Oh, my kid's dad is in Australia. Got to reunite the family and all that." Manager Chun totally bought it. "Makes sense. It must be tough raising a kid alone. We all thought you were a single mom." I just smiled. I wasn't technically a single mom yet, but I was about to be. As I walked out, guess who I ran into? Marcus and Tiffany, walking towards me all lovey-dovey. Marcus, remember, is my boss, my husband, and my child's father. 7 years ago, I was his personal assistant. One drunken night, boom, we had a kid. This was our 6th year of being secretly hitched, and like I said, in the 6th year, he wouldn't let our kid call him Dad. Marcus was walking all slow, like he was being extra careful with Tiffany. She was holding a report in one hand and practically clinging to Marcus' suit with the other. It was sickeningly sweet, almost made me gag. As we passed each other, my heart did this weird flutter thing. I couldn't help myself. I blurted out, "Marcus." He stopped, his face all cold and businesslike. "Assistant Belle?" That polite, distant assistant Belle was his way of reminding me that we were just boss and employee at work. I got the message loud and clear. I swallowed my feelings and switched to formal mode. "Chairman Grant." Marcus gave this tiny nod, didn't even break his stride like I was some random person on the street. I just smiled this bitter, sad smile and stuffed the resignation message I was going to give him back in my pocket. Like he'd even care, right? Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sam through his little smartwatch. "Mom, will Dad come back to celebrate my birthday?" I froze. I instinctively turned around and saw Marcus bending down, talking to Tiffany all sweet and gentle. Some guy walked by and Marcus instinctively shielded Tiffany with his arm, his eyes all soft and tender. Trying to ignore the bitter taste in my mouth, I still texted Marcus, "It's Sam's birthday today. Are you free tonight?" Across the hallway, I saw him pick up his phone, glance at it for maybe 3 seconds and then put it down. No change in his expression whatsoever. Watching that text just sit there unanswered, I couldn't help but smile, this sad, knowing smile. Seriously, Via Bell, when are you going to learn? You should have known his heart was basically a block of ice, so why even bother hoping? I shoved the phone back in my pocket, took a deep breath and left. "Marcus, soon you're going to be a free man." After work, I went straight to pick up Sam from kindergarten. When he saw me, his first words were, "Mom, today is my birthday." His second sentence was, "Mom, will Dad celebrate with me?" We were standing on this busy street, and my eyes just instantly filled with tears. "Your dad," before I could even finish, my phone rang. Marcus finally had time to reply, "I'll be home. I'm free." I was shocked. Honestly, I almost eagerly nodded. "Don't worry, Sam. Dad will come home." My son clapped his hands, jumping into my arms, all excited. After 6 years of marriage, this was the first time Marcus had agreed to spend our son's birthday with him. That evening, I cooked this whole fancy dinner, and Sam finished his homework super early. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. I sent him a bunch of texts asking if he was coming, but surprise, surprise, no reply. Sam seemed to get it. He looked at me all concerned. "Mom, is Dad just too busy?" It felt like someone punched me in the gut. I wanted to explain, but I couldn't get a single word out. All I could manage was, "It's okay. Mom will always be here with you." Sam didn't ask any more questions. He just quietly picked up his little birthday hat. "Mom, will you put it on me?" I nodded, about to do it when I accidentally glanced at Tiffany's social media. She had just posted, "Today was great. I really enjoyed today. The picture was this ridiculously lavish meal at some fancy restaurant. Tiffany didn't show her face, but I saw the wedding ring peeking out in the corner. It was the one Marcus and I had picked out when we got married, except he always wore it on his left pinky finger because, that means you're single. How messed up is that? The ring that's supposed to symbolize marriage was Marcus' symbol of being single. So on our son's 6th birthday, he was having a candlelit dinner at a fancy restaurant with his mistress. All the bitterness just kind of melted away at that moment, and I felt this weird calm. I actually liked the post, put my phone down, and turned to put the birthday hat on Sam's head. Sam, happy birthday. Under the candlelight, Sam closed his eyes and clasped his hands together. My birthday wish is to always be with Mom. I picked up my phone and took a picture. The thought of leaving had fully taken root. It was like this giant tree had sprouted in my heart. All right, Mom promises you that night. Neither of us mentioned Marcus. It felt like honestly it had always just been the two of us in that house. After Sam fell asleep, I took out the divorce papers I prepared ages ago. Any last bit of hesitation I had gone around 2 a.m. Marcus finally came home when he saw the cake on the table. He had this flash of regret in his eyes. Sorry, I forgot. I almost laughed. I had like 1,000,000 reminder notifications on my phone. Could he seriously not see them? Or was he just so blinded by his little love affair that he forgot everything else? I flipped the divorce papers to the last page and, trying to stay calm, handed them to him. Please sign this. Before I could finish, his phone rang. It was Tiffany, her voice all panicked. Chairman Grant, the power went out at my place. Could you come over? I'm so scared. Marcus immediately stood up, his eyes all anxious. Wait for me. I'll be right there. He hung up the phone, didn't even look at me, and signed the document without a second thought. I stepped aside, silently watching him leave. Marcus, you better remember this. You chose to abandon this home. The next day, I went back to the office to hand over my work. Marcus actually came up to me first, handing me this beautifully wrapped gift box. It's Sam's birthday present. I forgot to give it to him yesterday. I was surprised, and when I opened it, it was a small dog toy. The thing my son feared the most was a dog. When he was 5, Marcus took him to an amusement park. But in the middle of the trip, Marcus ran into a friend and let go of Sam's hand. Sam got lost in the crowd. When they found him, he was trembling on the side of the road, scared by a stray dog. Since then, dogs have been Sam's worst nightmare. And the guy who caused this had the nerve to give him a dog toy. I didn't know if I was angrier or more disappointed. I just casually put the box aside. In this totally calm voice, I said, "Thank you." Marcus looked at me strangely, then seemed to remember something and added, "Tiffany's power went out, and I'm planning to let her stay at our house. Don't go to work today. Pack up and take Sam somewhere to stay for 2 days." His casual words felt like a punch to the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you telling me to leave the house with Sam just for Tiffany? Marcus frowned. Don't say it so harshly. It's just temporary. We agreed on a secret marriage, and we need to avoid any suspicion in front of colleagues. I smiled this bitter, ironic smile. Is this really just about colleagues? Is it just about avoiding suspicion? Or does he feel like Sam and I are in the way of his love life? Something he wants to hide? Not wanting to see him anymore, I sat back at my desk and continued working. I understand. I'll pack and take Sam out of here. I won't disturb you. It didn't matter anymore. Sooner or later, it didn't make a difference seeing how easily I agreed. Marcus seemed to freeze for a moment. He opened his mouth, his tone unexpectedly softening. I'll make it up to you. I didn't raise my head, only silently continuing my work. The damage was done, and no amount of making up would fix it. When I got home, I packed our things and left with Sam. Just as I was about to leave, the door opened, and I ran into Marcus coming back with someone. He was pushing Tiffany's luggage with one hand, looking like the perfect devoted boyfriend. As our eyes met, I clearly saw this brief flash of panic in his eyes. Tiffany was surprised and asked, "Assistant Belle, what are you doing here at Chairman Grant's house?" Hearing this, I immediately pulled Sam behind me, shielding him from view. They're my relatives, they're temporarily staying here. I barely started to explain, but Marcus interrupted me, his grip on the luggage tightening. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but every time I heard it, It felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Before I could speak, Sam spoke up first. "Hello, Uncle." I turned around in disbelief and saw my son's wide eyes. "Mom, let's go." All the words caught in my throat at that moment. I forced a smile and whispered, "Okay." As we passed by, Marcus grabbed my arm. He looked at me in disbelief. "Sam? What did he call me?" I smiled this sad, ironic smile. "Isn't this what you've always wanted?" For 6 years, Marcus had not only kept our marriage a secret, but he had never once let our son call him Dad. The only difference now was that before, he forced our son to call him Uncle. Now our son was the one who wanted to distance himself from him. Lowering my eyes, I tried to pull his hand off, but I couldn't move it. Marcus looked at me, his expression complicated. "Wait for me a few days, I'll explain to Sam," I reminded him. "Tiffany is waiting for you." "Let go." Marcus seemed to finally realize, reluctantly releasing his grip. I scoffed and grabbed Sam's hand, ready to leave, but Marcus suddenly called out to us. "Wait." He ran back to the car and handed me a box of cake. "Sam, happy birthday." Tiffany spoke up at the perfect moment. "This was the cake Chairman Grant bought for me, but it happens to be your son's birthday. Assistant Belle, I hope you don't mind." The cake in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed a ton. I was about to refuse, but then I saw the surprise in Sam's eyes. My heart softened and I hesitated. Sam didn't understand the adult drama, his eyes full of expectation as he looked at Marcus. "Can you eat it with me?" Marcus hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Sam ran into the living room, cheering, urging me to open the cake. I patted his head and quickly cut the cake, but as soon as I tasted it, the smile on my face completely froze. "Spit it out. You can't eat this." I almost panicked as I snatched the cake from my son's hands, my expression frantic. Marcus's face darkened immediately. "Olivia, are you crazy?" I lifted my head, my eyes wide. "Sam is allergic to mangoes. Didn't you know?" His face immediately filled with panic. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Another apology. Since Sam was born, I had heard this word countless times. Sam finally realized what was happening and stared at Marcus, his eyes void of expectation. "It's okay, they didn't know. It's normal." With those words, Sam buried his face in my chest and refused to look at Marcus again. Without hesitation, I stood up and walked out, holding Sam. Sam seemed to sense what was happening. Coming, waving his small hand, he said to his father, "Goodbye, Uncle." Hearing Uncle again, I could still feel Marcus's apologetic, panicked gaze as we walked out of the villa. But this time, both Sam and I felt no more sadness leaving the house. I went straight to the office and quickly packed up my things. I had planned to say a proper goodbye, but now it didn't seem necessary. I placed the signed divorce agreement on the table, letting out a long sigh. Taking my luggage, I left for the airport with Sam. Before getting on the plane, I asked Sam, "Will you be angry that Mom is taking you away?" Sam shook his head and pressed his face against mine. "I only want Mom." Tears finally broke free, and all the pain turned into relief. In that moment, I pulled out my phone and blocked all of Marcus's contacts. "Marcus, we will never see each other again." The next day, Marcus arrived at the office on time. After everything that happened yesterday, he had been restless all night. He opened his email and one approved message popped up. Resignation application. Looking at the large words on the email, Marcus suddenly had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to open it, Tiffany walked in, swaying gracefully. "Mr. Grant, here's the report from last time." Tiffany placed the file on the table and, as if familiar with the routine, walked over to Marcus's side, resting a hand on his shoulder. In the past, this had been their unspoken flirting, but now Marcus suddenly felt uncomfortable. Sitting up straight, Marcus opened the file. After reading just one page, his brows furrowed. The entire page was a mess. Apart from the format, nothing was right. Even the department name was misspelled. He slammed the file down onto the table, his voice cold as he asked, "Who made this report? Do they have basic work skills? Call Manager Chin. How does the HR department hire people?" Tiffany's face immediately turned pale. "Mr. Grant, I made this." All of Marcus's anger fizzled out in an instant. He glanced at Tiffany, who seemed taken aback. For the first time, he felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. Tiffany looked up at him, her eyes red and her voice weak. Mr. Grant, do you think I'm stupid? She wiped away a tear, exuding the persistence of a delicate flower. If you really think I'm not up to it, I'll leave. You can hire a smarter, more capable secretary. With that, she turned to leave. Marcus instinctively reached out to stop her, but when he met Tiffany's pitiful gaze, he froze. Olivia would never look at him like that. She was proud. No matter what happened, she always tried to solve things herself, unlike Tiffany. If only Olivia were still here. His hand, which had been holding Tiffany, slowly clenched. He was startled by his own thoughts. Almost in panic, he let go of Tiffany and rubbed his brow, tired. Go out for now, Tiffany. Still wanting to say something, she replied, Mr. Grant. Marcus's patience ran thin, and his tone grew colder. Tiffany bit her lip, but in the end she reluctantly walked out. After she left, Marcus returned to his desk, looking at the flawed report. Countless images flashed through his mind. Years ago, I was a fresh newbie with no work experience and no outstanding academic background. I didn't stand out among many excellent candidates, but I was the only one who made it through the internship period. At that time, I had drive. I was willing to work hard. If I didn't know how to make a report, I would stubbornly ask the senior employees for help. If I didn't understand the work process, I would carry a notebook to jot down notes anytime, anywhere. No matter when, as long as he needed me, I would be there in the shortest time with the best solution. Even at business events, I could quickly memorize everyone's identity and characteristics. Back then, I always said, Mr. Grant, next time I'll do even better. If being a secretary was graded, I would undoubtedly get a perfect score. Marcus still remembered that when he brought Olivia around, everyone envied him for having a gold medal secretary. But sadly, it all came crashing down that night. After that wild, unplanned event, everything changed. Marcus still didn't understand why I had degraded myself, scheming to get into his bed. He only knew that when he woke up the next morning and saw Olivia lying beside him, all the admiration he had for her turned into disgust. Honestly, the admiration he had once felt was completely gone, replaced by this sick feeling. Even though we had to get married because of the kid, he couldn't bring himself to get along with Olivia. He even deliberately found someone like Tiffany, the complete opposite of me, as a way to rebel against married life. But now, thinking of Tiffany, who had become increasingly unbearable, Marcus suddenly felt bored. The image of Olivia and our son leaving so definitively flashed before his eyes, and his heart started racing. Maybe, just maybe, he should stop his childish behavior. Maybe after all these years I had changed. Maybe at 6 o'clock in the evening, Marcus attended this fancy banquet hosted by a business partner, with Tiffany, of course. It had been a whole day since he last saw me, and Marcus, holding his wine glass, found himself totally distracted. Had he gone too far this time? This thought suddenly popped into his head. Marcus pursed his lips and drank the wine in one gulp. He took out his phone about to text me, but was interrupted by a business partner approaching. Mr. Grant, about the proposal last time. Marcus was stunned for a moment before immediately pushing other thoughts aside, shifting into work mode. Just as the conversation was getting good, a totally off-key voice cut through. Mr. Grant, this dessert is so delicious. Tiffany, holding a chocolate cupcake, looked at him with this innocent, naive expression. The conversation was interrupted, and the mood in the room turned sour. Tiffany, however, completely missed the awkward vibe. She smiled brightly and squeezed her way in front of Marcus, bringing the chocolate cupcake to his lips. Caught off guard, Marcus ended up with chocolate and cream smeared all over his face. Startled, Marcus quickly reached out to wipe it off. However, he stepped back sharply, like he was avoiding a snake or something. Tiffany stopped, her eyes immediately welling with tears. Mr. Grant, what's wrong? You weren't like this before. Marcus took a deep breath, ready to say something, but then noticed the awkward gazes of the business partners. Seeing him glance over, the others awkwardly forced a smile. Mr. Grant, you continue with your work. We can talk about the proposal next time. The others all agreed, nodding. Yes, you're busy. We'll talk next time. With that, they quickly excused themselves and left. Marcus had no reason to stop them, and it wouldn't have been appropriate anyway. What should have been a productive business negotiation had turned into a humiliating mess because of Tiffany. Marcus couldn't even begin to imagine how he'd be seen in the industry after this. And yeah, that's exactly how it played out. After they left, they found a place to totally trash-talk Marcus. "Tisk, do you think Mr. Grant has some special fetish?" Marco, a guy in his 50s, was the first to speak up. Another one clicked his tongue. "Maybe younger people like that sort of thing." Marco shook his head, still unable to understand. Secretary Bell was so much better. Smart, capable, and most importantly, she had some sense. "I don't know why Secretary Bell just wouldn't leave Polaris. I've tried poaching her a few times privately, but no luck." They all laughed, but no one said anything directly. The truth was Marco had also tried to poach me back. With Marcus, he was staring at Tiffany, his chest rising and falling with anger. "Tiffany, look at what you've done." Tiffany's eyes turned red, looking like she'd been deeply wronged. "Mr. Grant, what did I do? I just wanted to share with you. Did I do something wrong?" She grew more upset as she spoke, even starting to sob. The others were drawn by the emotion, casting curious and weird looks in their direction. Marcus, unable to do anything, bit his teeth and suppressed his fury. He couldn't yell at her in front of everyone, so he forced himself to swallow it. "You're not at fault, it's my fault," he muttered. Marcus closed his eyes, gripping the wine glass so tightly it felt like it would break. Tiffany blinked, thinking that he wasn't angry anymore. She quickly wiped away her tears and excitedly rushed into his embrace. "Mr. Grant, you're so kind." Marcus's gaze became distant. In his heart, he regretted a million times that in his attempt to rebel, he had chosen such a foolish woman like Tiffany. Worried that Tiffany might continue causing trouble, because she was totally clueless, Marcus avoided any more conversations. Occasionally, someone would approach him to chat, but he only exchanged brief, polite words. For the rest of the time, Marcus simply sat in a corner on the sofa, drinking glass after glass of wine. Finally, after enduring until the banquet ended, Marcus said goodbye to the host and left in a hurry. By the time he got home, the alcohol had started to kick in. Leaning on his head, Marcus unsteadily pushed open the door. "Olivia, pour me some water." There was a long silence in the room. Marcus looked up, and as he stared at the darkened hallway, it hit him. "I had left with our son yesterday." Turning on the lights, Mark headed to the kitchen. He pulled out a can of soda from the fridge, and as he closed the door, he noticed that the fridge door was covered in tons of stickers, big and small. Most of them were cartoon characters that his son loved. Looking at these childish stickers, which he usually found super immature, Marcus couldn't help but let out a small chuckle. For some reason, the image of Sam sneaking into the study flashed across his mind. He had a children's book in his hands and with careful steps, walked up to Marcus asking, "Dad, can you read with me?" And what did Marcus say? He paused, his hand still holding the drink, his gaze turning distant. He had said, "I'm busy. I don't have time." Suddenly, a wave of this unexplainable frustration surged within him. He took out his phone and despite himself sent a message. "Send me your address. I'll come to pick you and Sam up tomorrow." After typing the message, he felt it wasn't quite right and revised his tone. "Where are you and Sam staying these days? I'll come pick you both up tomorrow." Taking a deep breath, Marcus clicked send, but the very next moment, a glaring symbol appeared on his screen. "You are not yet friends with this person. Please send a friend request and once it's approved, you can start chatting." Damn it. The can of soda was thrown to the floor. Marcus furrowed his brows, almost panicking as he opened the work group chat. Nothing. Still nothing. In the group with hundreds of people, Marcus scrolled through message after message, but there was no trace of my profile picture. Had I left the group? No, that couldn't be. Olivia hadn't quit her job, so there was no way she'd leave the work group. Marcus chuckled, but it was forced hollow, thinking of the resignation letter that he hadn't opened earlier that morning. The unease in his chest refused to go away. He hesitated for just a second before dialing the HR manager's number. "Hello." On the other end of the line, there was a lot of background noise like a family watching TV. Through the speaker, Marcus could even hear a child's voice in the distance. "Daddy, the cartoon is about to start." Manager Chun cleared his throat and seemingly having found a quieter spot, continued, "Hello, Mr. Grant. Is there something I can assist you with?" The deep voice of the man startled Marcus, who had been lost in thought. No, nothing. I just wanted to ask you, why couldn't I find Olivia in the workgroup chat? Manager Chan paused for a second before quickly answering. Assistant Bell resigned. She submitted her resignation letter early the day before yesterday. She said her husband was stationed in Australia, and she wanted to go reunite with her family and further her studies. Assistant Bell was firm in her decision, so I reported it and got approval. Didn't you? You know Mr. Grant. As Marcus listened, his grip on the phone tightened and he almost couldn't suppress a bitter laugh. How could he not know that Olivia had a husband working in Australia? Just as he was about to lose his temper, the sound of a child's voice suddenly came through the phone. Daddy, why aren't you watching TV with me? A manager's comforting voice followed. Almost done, sweetheart. Wait for Daddy to finish this call. Okay. It seemed like it was a natural thing for all adults. The moment they spoke to a child, their voice would soften immediately. Marcus stood there, stunned, listening to the voice on the phone. Uncontrollably, his mind drifted to Sam again. The truth was he had a complete family, but somehow it felt like he had lost it. That night, Marcus sat on the kitchen floor, not moving the entire night. It was the first time he had ever been so helpless. In the past, no matter how late he came home, there would always be a light on for him. There would always be someone sitting on the sofa quietly waiting for his return. But now all that was gone. The huge villa was empty, with only him left waiting alone for the dawn to break. The next day, Marcus didn't even change his clothes before heading straight to the office. He opened the door to his office only to find that his workstation had already been tidied up. It was so neat it was almost glaring. On the desk, a thin file lay quietly. It looked like Pandora's box just waiting for someone to open it. His hands trembling, he opened it, and a line of bold letters caught his eye. The couple's relationship has broken down due to personality differences and reconciliation is no longer possible. After mutual consultation, both parties have agreed to divorce and reached the following agreement. Male Marcus, female Olivia. So you really do intend to leave me? Marcus chuckled, though his eyes betrayed him, turning red when it wasn't appropriate. He had thought about leaving many times, but he never imagined that the person who would make that decision first would be him. He never imagined that, without realizing it, the person who couldn't live without the other was actually him. Grabbing the divorce agreement, Marcus made a decisive turn and walked away. He was going to Australia. He was going to find her. He was going to get answers. After all, it was he who had initiated everything. Why should he leave without a single word? The more he thought about it, the faster Marcus' steps became. He walked out with a stern expression, but as he turned the corner, he accidentally bumped into a woman who was all perfume. Mr. Grant, hey, where are you going? You didn't even send me home last night. I had to stay at a hotel for the night. I'm upset about that. Tiffany stood in front of Marcus, pouting and acting coy. Marcus wasn't in the mood to entertain the fake delicate woman. He coldly responded, "Leave." Tiffany was taken aback, then stomped her foot. Mr. Grant, what are you saying? If you keep this up, I'll get angry. Leave, Marcus repeated himself, his eyes as cold as ice, as though they could freeze her in place. Tiffany opened her mouth to say something else, but Marcus simply pushed her aside and walked past. As he walked, his phone rang. Hello. Help me check Olivia Bell's current address, and also book me a flight to Australia for today. Australia today was Sam's first day of school. I woke up early to get his backpack ready. Although we had only been in Australia for 2 days, I had actually been planning this for a long time. Half a year ago, I reached out to a friend who was working in Australia. I asked him to help me find a suitable house and school, preparing for the divorce. At first, I didn't plan to come this early, but I was just used to being well prepared in advance. Looking back, I was glad I had that habit, or I would have been completely clueless. I also had to thank Marcus for still having some conscience left after our marriage. He had never been stingy with money. After watching Sam get on the school bus, I adjusted my coat and turned back toward home. But suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Olivia. I stiffly turned around and sure enough, it was Marcus. He looked much more haggard than before, his clothes wrinkled and his chin covered with stubble. Yet despite all that, he was still, handsome. That was how I was once captivated. No one knew that I applied for the job at the company because of Marcus. He was my senior, 3 years older than me. A fleeting glance at the welcome party made me completely lose my heart. I didn't come from a prestigious family, nor did I have striking looks. The only thing I had was diligence and intelligence. So during my 4 years of university, I studied and worked tirelessly, taking exams and internships. Only then did I get the opportunity to interview at North Star. And only then did I have the right to stand proudly before Marcus and tell him my name. It took me 5 years to get close to Marcus, but in one night all my hard work was thrown away. I forced a smile, trying to maintain the dignity of an adult. I opened the door, but I didn't turn around. "Come in and sit." Marcus's eyes lit up, and he quickly followed my footsteps. "2 sugars, no milk?" I poured him a cup of coffee and set it in front of him, sitting down on another sofa. Marcus's voice was a little hoarse. "You still remember?" I smiled faintly, not responding. "Since you came to find me, you must have seen the divorce agreement, right? I don't want half of your assets. I just want custody of Sam." Marcus paused, then raised his head to look at me. "Olivia, I don't agree to the divorce." I nodded without saying anything, already anticipating this. "It's fine, I can wait. I'll even agree to separate for 3 years. Marcus slammed his cup down on the table with a heavy thud, the sound echoing in the room. "Olivia, do you really want to leave me that much? Don't forget, 6 years ago, it was you who climbed into my bed first." My heart throbbed with a dull pain. I looked at him in disbelief, finally understanding everything. "Marcus, so this is how you felt all these years? No wonder after waking up that morning your attitude changed. Originally, I thought you didn't appreciate what you had once you got it, but now I see you've always thought this way." There was disappointment, but more than that, a sense of relief. I lowered my eyes, fiddling with the coffee cup in my hands. My voice soft. "Marcus, have you ever thought that I might be the victim here?" Marcus stared at me, stunned. What I remembered that night Marcus was drunk, and I helped him to the reserve suite. After briefly helping him wash up, I placed a glass of warm water on the bedside table and prepared to leave. But suddenly Marcus grabbed my hand and roughly pulled me onto the bed. That night I struggled, screamed, but it was all in vain. I had secretly admired Marcus for 4 years, but I never imagined that one day this would be how it would begin. After it was over, I spent the entire night convincing myself, "It's fine, it's okay, you liked him, didn't you?" But I never expected that Marcus didn't remember a thing. Well, that's fine. I could keep convincing myself that it wasn't hurtful. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, only calm remained. "Let the past be the past, Marcus. Please stop interfering with my life." "All right." Marcus opened his mouth, his thoughts a jumbled mess. "What did you mean by that just now?" "It's nothing. I have things to do. Please leave." Marcus left. Before he left, he said only one thing. "I don't agree to the divorce. When I've thought things through, I'll come find you again." I didn't pay much attention to him, and I officially began my studies in Australia. Without work to distract me, I spent more time with Sam. He gradually forgot the unpleasant memories and made many local friends. During this time, I casually dated a few boyfriends, but I never thought about getting married. Marcus also visited Australia from time to time to see Sam. Perhaps he wanted to repair his father-son relationship. I asked Sam about it, and I did refuse his visits. After all, Sam was Marcus's child. Marcus might have remembered something during that time. For a while he kept sending me money. He would occasionally visit Sam and look at me with this guilty expression. I ignored him. I took the money but didn't stop dating other people. He was nothing more than a small interlude in my life, and he would no longer affect me. So you see, the sun will rise again. Even without the sun, it will still get light.